Oh, hi! You caught me about to enjoy a tasty caffeinated diet beverage. My name is Chris. Welcome to the weekly Spinner Rack, folks. This is a show where we talk about the latest comic book news as well as the latest comics. Oh my God, it was a really strong week for comics. Some of my absolute favorites that came out this week that we'll talk about later. Last Mermaid issue 3, beautiful. Transformers number 9. Number eight. I can't get over how good this is. And Fantastic Four. These are 3 favorites. There's a few others that came out this week. I can't wait to talk about it. We've also got some really crazy news. Basically, lawsuit heavy news. A lot of Skybound stuff. Let's see. We've got some folks that are jumping into the chat, and I'll just throw up some hellos to everybody, some shout outs, if you will, to folks that are here right at the beginning. The chat's part of what makes this fun. We've got some back and forth. Otherwise, it's just me shouting into a void. What else do I have to say up front? Anything? Oh, this is kind of cool. If you have a Target near you, look at this. It's a Jack Kirby action figure, basically. Kirby was a character in the Donatello micro series by Eastman and Laird, but it's absolutely based on Jack Kirby. And if you read the fine print underneath, it says that they got likeness rights from the Kirby estate. So this is like actually officially licensed from Jack Kirby's estate. And so that's kind of fun. A Jack Kirby action figure. Love Jack Kirby. I thought that would be fun. Yes. I mean, Last Mermaid is such a breath of fresh air because it's just different and cool and new. A lot of stuff. It doesn't come with a chair, but what it does come with is like a sketch and a pen. So that's kind of cool. Those are good accessories. Yeah, I believe that they get paid for it. Yes. So that's what you'd want, right? Also, I picked up this. You guys remember this from like 8th grade middle school reports? Some poster board? Why would I need poster board? AEW Pro Wrestling is coming local. So Wednesday night, I've got ringside tickets. It wasn't very much. It really wasn't. So I'm going to be ringside on Wednesday's AEW Dynamite. And I figured I'd make a poster that says, do a power bomb, looking like the Daniel Warren Johnson comic. I was like, well, that's like a comic book reference that should get on the show okay, because it's just a pro wrestling phrase, right? Anyway, I'm going to try. We'll see what happens. You've got tickets to Portland. Very nice. You can plug whatever you want. Good luck. Only 14 likes. Yeah, if you've got a moment, hit like. Tell you what, folks, let's get started with the show. Where is my present button? Here, give me one moment. I'm going to bring up my little document here. And there we go. Let's start with the news. Look at that. What a bright, vibrant thumbnail. And I used that, like, hey, if we've got a bunch of blue, then a natural color offset would be orange, right? Opposite end of the spectrum. Just brilliant design here. I'm just giving a hard time. Oh, good. No. Even though Eddie Kingston has given this channel a shout out several times, he's currently wrestling with New Japan Pro Wrestling, and he did get injured the other day, so he's very unlikely to be at the AEW show. But that's okay. I would have loved that too. Any tips for going to Japan? I'll be going from June the 8th to the 23rd. Oh my God. Well, first of all, you just get the lightest clothing you have, because it is going to be very, very hot. It's going to be easily high 90s when you're there, if that's when you're going. Other than that, I'd say, as much Japanese phrases as you can learn is helpful. If you're staying in the city like Tokyo, they use a lot of English, but they prefer not to, but they mostly can. So, yeah, beyond that, I don't know. There's just so many things to recommend. It all depends on what somebody wants to do between food and shopping and stuff like that. Eddie has been on a couple just like YouTube pro wrestling shows. Whenever he's asked what he likes to watch, he says that he likes to watch a lot of YouTube, and he's mentioned my show more than once. So that's very kind of him. Very kind. Hey, Andy, long time no see. But Andy, just since you're there, let me see if I still have it handy. I really liked something you did. Folks, it's Andy Kuhn, artist extraordinaire. Where is my copy? Hold on. I never have anything handy when I need it. Darn it. I could have. There it is. There it is. If your local comic shop still has it, Andy did a story for Free Comic Book Days Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, and it's a really nice, charming story about like what Splinter gets up to when the Turtles are out and about. It's fantastic, Andy. I really sincerely enjoyed it. So hope you're doing well. Nice to have you here. Anyway, that was a lot of preamble. Let's get going. Enough backing for me and for anyone else. Let's kick it off. Oh, I do have one more thing to promote. I was able to get the time off work, and not this Saturday, but the following Saturday, the 25th, I will be participating in this massive live stream. These are basically just about all the YouTube comic channels you can think of. We are all going to be playing Fortnite to raise money for the Cancer Research Institute. That starts at 3 p.m. Central. Look, it's organized by Comic Drake. You can see he's going to be teamed with Linkara. I'm going to be teamed with my buddy Godzilla Mendoza, but I'm sure you recognize a lot of these channels. Look, there's Matt. Everybody watches his stuff these days. Nerd Sync, great guy. Blurred Without Fear. Who else? I lots of lovely people here. Panels to Pixels. Michaela Laird. Just some great people. Great people. Thought I'd mention that. Yes, New Mexico's own Andy Kuhn. We've got news. Let me start with this. Manga publishers are apparently investing in AI translation. Not AI art, or AI imagery, as I like to call it, because I don't really consider it art unless a person creates it. Isn't that a hot take? Let's talk about this. So, 10 companies, including Shogakukan, who publishes some pretty popular manga like Detective Conan, Frieren, as well as the Japanese government's Japan Industrial Innovation Investment Corporation, and 8 more companies. They're investing 2.92 billion yen, that's around $19 million US, in a new startup called Orange. And Orange is all about developing correct AI translation stuff, which is harder than it might sound, because you can translate a word. That doesn't always translate context. That has always been the trick, and that is basically why I think that real people will always be better. We'll see if this is something that can work. Beyond that, the goal here, the reason they're doing this, is they want to increase their manga translation capabilities to 10 times their current output, so that they can export more manga worldwide. If you haven't been paying attention, Japan is having a tough time economically. If you go and visit, your money's going to go very far. So this is literally kind of a need. They really need to, like, one of their strongest exports is manga. Back in the day, of course, it was electronics, and of course it still is, but and cars, but manga is also a huge thing. So the whole goal here is the publishers and the government want to increase how much they can deliver worldwide. Their plans call, as you can see that I wrote here, 50,000 manga over the next 5 years, a massive amount. Keep in mind, that's not all just for English. It's for French and other regions that read manga. There's lots of Spanish and Portuguese speaking countries that read manga. And here's one more thing why they, because I know, we're not fans of AI. I would love for actual people to get this work. But here's Japan's concern from a business point of view. Their anti-piracy organization, CODA, claims that the lag that they have in translating manga and getting it out into other readers' hands in other languages is such that it's costing the industry between $3 to $5 million. I'm talking US dollars right now, a year. As in, the fans are creating like a fan translation and probably a lot of times using, simple Google Translate stuff to do it at that. And that's costing them a certain amount of money. So we'll see. Yeah, I agree. I agree with that. AI probably at some point can do a reasonable translation, and I literally could see an advantage there. What if, for instance, you could wear glasses or hold up your phone and it on the fly came up with an accurate translation? That would increase a lot of tourism dollars, But I definitely think humans will always have a bit more nuance and a little bit more artistic intent with what they create. Now, that said, Orange specifically says their goal is they use AI and they're trying to train it to do a good job, but that the final step is to still have sort of an editor look at things and go, this needs to be changed or that needs to be changed. It's a tricky subject because we want to give these jobs to people, but honestly, there's a chance that it's still good, because if you upscale to this degree, that probably does create some more jobs in the world. There will still have to be translators that the editors work with to sort of give the final sign off, as well as help train and correct these programs. So there is potential for some other jobs and to help the economy. I'm not sure yet. We'll see how this goes. I'm just saying that for translation, I could see some advantages. I would prefer always the human touch, personally. I always would. But we'll see. Does every manga need to be translated? No. And honestly, there's lots of manga that probably will never be translated on a mass scale because the first audience is Japanese and it is a different culture. We're fascinated with all sorts of Japanese stories, but not all of them are really going to land with us. The stuff that lands tends to be the supernatural and the sci-fi stories that are a little more broad. It's not always the drama and stuff that will connect as well, but sometimes. I'll move on to some more stories. I thought this was just really interesting. A Rikers Island comic won the Pulitzer this past week. Specifically, I'm talking about an artist and writer named Madar de la Cruz, and he received a Pulitzer in the Illustrated Reporting and Commentary category for his work about being a librarian at Rikers Island. If you're not familiar, Rikers Island is a prison in New York City. My best friend from college oversees a lot of the therapists there. So I've heard many stories for many, many years about Rikers Island. It is not a perfect place, but it probably is a necessary one. Anyway, cameras are definitely not allowed on Rikers. It's a prison, or a jail, really. And that said, you could still go home and write and draw your stories, and that's what Madar has done. Is not an inmate. I just want to make that clear. Literally works for the New York Library, and his specific role is helping the inmates get the books and textbooks and stuff like that that they want to read or need to read if they're taking classes. Correct. I tried to make that distinction just now. The biggest problem with Rikers, in my opinion, I'm not speaking for anyone else, is just that they have, they do things kind of on the cheap. They've outsourced it to a company, and so there's not always the funding needed to properly rehabilitate and care for the inmates. But we'll see how that goes. This is still an interesting story to learn what it's like, and to see that, like, there are some inmates that are trying to themselves when they're housed there. This is a really interesting thing about this specific story. It's, of course, a nonfiction account, no embellishment, about this library worker, Madar, who he helps folks on the Vernon C. Bain Center. Now, what that actually is it's basically an overflow, because Rikers houses so many inmates, something like 6,000 on that island. They actually have a massive barge, like that you usually see all the shipping containers and stuff on, that's been converted into overflow jail cells, and it's permanently anchored by the what is it called? Like where they process all the seafood and stuff, and the restaurants and stores and stuff can go down and purchase fish, so it really stinks. Anyway, this is available through the New Yorker. So if you looked up, Medard de la Cruz, or you looked up Rikers Island Library, New Yorker, things like that, you'll be able to find this. It's a black and white nonfiction story. I read it and I thought it was really interesting, really, really interesting. But then again, I'm fascinated personally with the stories of little niche pieces of society that we don't get to see every day. Some of you know I have a part-time job selling cars, and some of what I actually like about that job is that everybody uses a car from a wide variety of backgrounds. It crosses age, it crosses religion, it crosses sex, it crosses every type of employment class. So I get to learn about people that are executives at Microsoft. I get to meet people that are, in motorcycle clubs. I get to meet people that are part of traveling circuses. And I find that stuff really interesting, just really, really interesting. So this is sort of like that, like finding out how the day-to-day life of inmates is. It's interesting. Yes, we absolutely need cars for Road Warrior and related Mad Max films. That's the most important use for vehicles. Yeah, it would. I'm probably get used to it if you're housed there permanently, but it's said to really, really stink. Moving on. This is some fairly big news in a way. Marvel has subpoenaed Instagram to get the identity of a very popular account that leaked some footage of one of their MCU movies. So they filed the subpoena with Instagram to learn the identity of Can We Get Some Toast? And you may have heard that name before, because every once in a while I've used a scoop or something dropped by Can We Get Some Toast? Generally, Marvel, DC, a lot of the big studios, they will not come after people for releasing just news items, rumors, and stuff like that. But what Can We Get Some Toast did is they posted some actual footage from next year's America, The New World movie to its story. So it was up for 24 hours. I guess they thought that they could get away with it. Studios definitely crack down a lot harder when you've shared actual footage. If it's a behind the scenes photo that was out on the street, Too bad for the studios. That's out in the public. If you post a rumor about what the story's supposed to be about, well, it's not necessarily substantiated, so they're not going to go after that either. But you actually like share some footage that hasn't been released yet, well, that is a potential copyright violation. And I'm not no lawyer, so I don't know how in the clear Can We Get Some Toast is or not. But Marvel's taken this pretty damn seriously. They have a supporting declaration. You can actually read it if you're interested. It's all in legalese. But Marvel's vice president of global security and content protection said, Can We Get Some Toast, quote, published a copyrighted image from an upcoming Marvel Studios motion picture, Captain America, Brave New World, without authorization, and is therefore in breach of the Digital Millennium Copyright Act, DMCA. We'll see if Instagram feels they need to comply or not. Basically, what's happened right now is Marvel says, we want to know the identity of the person behind this leak so that we can potentially go after them in court. We'll see. We will see. I really don't know. Yeah, I also would be very careful with a company as big as any of the movie studios, to be honest. Disney, when you think about it, isn't even as big as like, Universal, Sony, Warner Brothers. They're just not. They're big, but they're not as big. So, but everybody knows about their lawyers. That I know, and I don't want to root for a company, but I also don't know how smart it is to leak something. I get the interest in being the first to get a scoop, but I hope that Can We Get Some Toast basically already employs some lawyers and maybe ran it by them. Maybe they're in the clear after all. I don't know. I don't know exactly what footage it was. I read a few different articles trying to nail that down, and I because I didn't see the story when it was up, and so I don't know exactly what was leaked. I'm sure it's out there somewhere, but I couldn't find it. Oh no, Disney isn't the largest. Disney isn't even close to the largest. No. Yeah, Disney is a big organization, absolutely, but companies like, whoever owns Universal and NBC and Comcast and that is much bigger. Warner Brothers, whoever owns Warner Brothers, Discovery, that's it. They're much more massive. Disney's big, don't get me wrong, they are, but they're just not even close to the other corporations because Disney is still its own self, whereas the other movie studios, there's about 5 big ones outside of Disney. They're all owned by massive companies, just that have a lot of different businesses. So it gets, Viacom. That's what I was looking for. Yep. Saul would advise abandoning his life and taking off for Argentina. Well, you say his, but Can We Get Some Toast might be a lady. So there you go. Quality speculation from a quality host. That's the pros and cons guarantee. That's my new catchphrase. What do you think? Oh yeah, there has been some stuff that's spoiled, but for instance, there are some Happy Meal images for Captain America 4 that got out there, but that's not something they can really go after. Yes, it may spoil elements, but unfortunately, that'll always be sort of on them that they made a mistake letting some of those images out there. Anyway, yeah. We're going to move on. Fantastic Four cast Galactus, and the only reason I really mention that is I kind of like this casting, folks. Let me explain. So the Hollywood Reporter announced that Ralph Ineson will portray Galactus in the upcoming movie. And if you don't know who that is, I understand, but Ralph Ineson's pretty awesome. He was in the original Office. He was Chris Finch. He was in that great Ralph Eggers movie, The Witch. And then I guess he was also in The Northman and should be in Nosferatu, all by Ralph Eggers. He was one of the Death Eaters in Harry Potter. He was in Game of Thrones. Dagmar Cleftjaw on that. Basically, the coolest thing about him is he has just a really iconic, super deep voice. And as soon as like they just like announced this, I was like, oh, you know what? That's a really good voice for this massive cosmic entity. It fits. I get it. It's his voice. It's all about his voice. Yeah, he was in the Green Knight. He really should bulk up. I will say this. If Marvel has cast a British man to portray a cosmic entity, that's one thing. But until Ralph Ineson actually eats a planet, personally, I can't get behind it. So he will have to eat a planet. Yep. Oh, that's right. I guess he has done some video game work, hasn't he? I did not know that Malkovich was cast in Fantastic Four, but he better not be Paste Pot Pete. Kevin Feige, I swear, that is my role. You got to give it to me. It's what the fans want. There are dozens of people that want that to happen. But yeah, like, come on, Ralph, eat at least one planet. There's precedent. Orson Welles ate many planets before he was cast as Unicron in Transformers the movie. I think that was very impressive. He was a very large man when he recorded the voice for Unicron. And I think it's only fair to hold Ralph Ineson to the same standard. We want a planet-sized actor. I think that's the only fair way to do it. All right. Hilarious jokes from a hilarious host. Moving on. Marvel shared some details on their X-Factor reboot. They've got a lot of X-Men books coming out. A lot of X-Men books. This one, they announced who's going to be working on it. Part of this did interest me. It's going to be written by Mark Russell. Russell is a writer I'm really starting to like. I'm a little late to discovering his work. I find it very nuanced. I find it very funny when he wants to be. And I've heard that this X-Factor should actually have a bit of humor. I think it's meant to be a little bit of a throwback to the X-Factor that Peter David wrote that also had some humor in more ways than one. Illustrated by artist Bob Quinn. The team is going to be co-led by Angel and Havoc. Havoc has led X-Factor before. Then they've got recruits. Pyro, okay. Frenzy, Feral. Feral's not featured in this. I have no idea what Feral's been up to. That's that Liefeld character from X-Force back in the day. I haven't seen Feral in forever. Anyway, and there's going to be some more. This version of the team is going to be working for the government. That had been a thing before where the government ran X-Factor through Val Cooper. Pyro does at first seem like an odd choice until you realize before Val Cooper was the liaison for X-Factor, Val basically pulled an Amanda Waller and ran Freedom Force. That was Mystique and the Brotherhood of Evil Mutants, like working for the government. There was Mystique, Pyro, Blob, Avalanche, Super Saber, the super fast one, and they all worked for the government for a little while. And then that like transitioned into actually being X-Factor. Yes, X-Factor as a detective agency was very good. X-Factor has always sort of been just sort of separate. Like, you know, it's been its own. X-Factor and X-Force will sometimes have characters from X-Men, but it's been the name of just like teams with their own missions. Anyway, it could be good. It could be good. It's been something that Marvel has done before, had X-Factor be a government team that goes after, you know, terrorist threats and mutants that are terrorists, things like that. Things like that. Stonewall and Crimson Commando. Yeah. But aren't I remembering right that there was a super speedster that was called like Super Saber? Or do I have that name totally wrong? I did say Avalanche earlier. I did say Avalanche. I can understand it's a lot of X-Men stuff. I don't. Here's what I hope. As long as they don't do lots of crossovers, fine. Put out a bunch of different X-Men books with different directions on all of them. If somebody can just read, say, NYX or Storm or X-Factor and enjoy just that book, good. Quicksilver was on the X-Factor team that was led by Havoc and worked for Val Cooper, but I thought it was Super Saber for some reason. Well, Dupe has always been with X-Statix, and before that it was called X-Force. Tempo? Well, we'll see what happens. And then this is sort of related. Marvel also shared some details for their Wolverine. I'm calling it a reboot. I mean, it basically is. It's not like it's rebooting the history, but it's starting fresh with a new creative team and a new direction. Oh, yeah, I am right. That's so nice. Okay, because that is going back to like kind of the early 90s or something. And thank you. Oh, okay, good. Thank you for confirming. Yes. Anyway, Marvel revealed that the new team on Wolverine is going to be writers Saladin Ahmed and artist Martin Kokolo. So those are people that, like, as far as who Marvel has these days, have been turning out some of their better products. Jesus, that seems cynical, but kind of accurate, right? I feel like we're at a point where we're right now, out of the big two, DC seems to have some of the bigger names. That's just my opinion. But these are quality creators. That makes sense to put them on a big title like Wolverine. The story is going to feature Wolverine retreating from society to the Canadian wilderness. That's something we've seen him do before. But this time his friend Nightcrawler is going to be there to try to bring him back, remind him that he's got friends and family. So I think he's going to basically be the co-lead of this book from what I've read. And also, they promised that there's going to be a new big enemy. They're not just going to do, Lady Deathstrike or Daken or Cyber, these ones that we've seen a million times before, Sabretooth, that they're going to be building up a new threat for Wolverine that is like a really ancient force that's somehow been around, like lurking in the shadows of the Marvel Universe for a while. A new character is a good idea as long as they can pull it off, as long as it's an interesting character with an interesting goal. That could be interesting. It better not be Romulus Jr. That was a misstep. Yeah, who was that? What was that one where they tried to tell us that Wolverine had he was one of many sort of Wolverine type characters? Was it Romulus that was tried to be set up as a big bad? That one kind of flopped, didn't it? Romulus kind of flopped. Did you see that they brought back Logan's brown suit as well as a bunch of older X-Men costumes in the X-Men 97? That was kind of fun. If it's following the comics somewhat closely, this season may end, in my opinion, with Onslaught, which would be a little weird since Onslaught was such a character created mostly to throw the Fantastic Four and Avengers into another universe. But it does seem like they could be building up to creating Onslaught for this show. We'll see. Yeah, Romulus stunk. Jeff Loeb wrote that? Wrote what? What did I just say? The X-Men 97? No, that was Bo DeMaio. What did Jeff Loeb write? Romulus was by Jeff Loeb? Is that what you're saying? That's probably what you're saying. I don't think he is, but I think that he was originally, that was one of the original thoughts for him. One of the original thoughts was that he was a Wolverine that got mutated into a man, but I don't think they ever actually went down that road. Yeah, Romulus, got it. Yeah, and then that was around the time where they also gave Wolverine flaming hot claws, and they just were sort of yeah, maybe that one doesn't make sense. Boy, I could probably make a whole comic tropes episode about the ideas they had for Wolverine that they had to sort of bail on at a certain point. Remember, like when he had his adamantium ripped out, it was revealed that without the adamantium, his healing factor just sort of turned him feral, which was an interesting idea. But then they started drawing him with basically no nose. It was a very weird visual that was never really explained. That was never explained. We're going to keep going. We're going to keep going. Oh, hold on. A super chat that matches my background there. Thank you, Rebellious Monkey. Speaking of X-Men, I really enjoyed your video on John Romita Jr. He's really one of my favorite artists ever, but I was never a fan of Dylan, aka Arum's, Furum's 2 videos ranting about it on him, and it was hard to look at. I don't know those videos, I have to admit. My favorite era, I've got like 2 eras of John Romita Jr. that I really like. I really liked his run on X-Men in the early 80s, and I really liked his early 2000s work on Amazing Spider-Man when J. Michael Straczynski was writing. I just feel like those 2 eras are his strongest overall artwork. But thank you for the super chat. And now I'm going to talk about Young Spider-Man aimed at kids. What am I talking about there? Well, Marvel publisher Dan Buckley gave a keynote address to the Comics Pro retailer event, and he said that Marvel is very aware of the explosion in people reading manga and young adult comics, that you know, the kind of stuff like Dogman and Captain Underpants and what else? The Raina Telgemeier books like Smile and Guts, that kind of stuff. Like that stuff sells like hotcakes. And so Marvel's very aware of how popular that stuff is. And they Buckley himself promised to provide low-cost access to Spidey and his Amazing Friends comics in July or August. We sort of got a hint of that with their free comic book day release, but apparently they're planning on putting out some more and bigger stuff that's aimed at like younger readers. And on top of that, Buckley also spoke recently with ICV2, and he said that in September, they'll be adding a middle grade Spider-Man Classroom Heroes title. And Marvel really wants to build their book market. And I think that that makes sense. That's where you hook new readers. I don't even know if, I think Marvel should get into that business-wise. Is using their superheroes the best way? I don't know. I feel like maybe you should just try all sorts of different genres, and who cares? You know, yeah, you've got superhero characters, maybe use them, but maybe do some new stuff too. Like maybe create some new stories just for that market. But it is smart business-wise to start aiming some of your stuff there. Diversify, you know, don't just put out monthly floppies and some trade paperbacks. Aim it at some different audiences. That's just smart business. I heard that there were a lot of books aimed at all ages. I didn't get to see that, but I heard that. I love that cartoon too, and I still think it has a banger of an opening theme song. You're sort of right there, Andy. You know, it's kind of amazing when I look at either Marvel or DC. It's been a while since either of them have created a bunch of new characters. Most of the characters are sort of riffs on their existing superheroes. And I think that that's because a creator these days, a writer or an artist, whoever it is, if they've got a really good idea, why give that to Marvel or DC? Give them some, you know, work at Marvel and DC, collect a good paycheck, get your name out there. But if you've got a really good idea for a new character, people want to take that to Image, to, you know, Boom, to wherever. So, you know, who has Marvel created in the last several years? I mean, I will argue that aside from the name, Ms. Marvel, Kamala Khan, that is a fairly new idea. She's got different powers. She's got a different background. And she's a fan of superheroes, so that's where her name comes from. But that's a pretty good character. Before that, I think you have to jump all the way back to like Runaways by Brian K. Vaughan and Alphonse. Yeah, it's anyway. Sorry. A super chat. Thank you, Rebellious Monkey. No offense to Dylan, but his videos come off as him sounding like a pretentious snob and compares his art to Rob Liefeld. And I was like, oh, shut up, will you? After seeing his videos, it made me feel so discouraged about. Yeah. Again, I'm afraid I just don't know this person that you're talking about. So I don't have an opinion one way or the other on it. I appreciate the super chat, but I have nothing to add to it. If I knew who it was, I probably would have an opinion, but I have to admit I don't. Yeah, Kamala has been around for a while, and that's a little bit my point, is that Marvel and DC aren't creating tons of new characters. Like the last time they really did was, still the Bronze Age. They do things like, okay, we're going to come up with Luke Cage, blaxploitation. We're going to come up with Ghost Rider, in the motorcycle and Satan Panic era. They were coming up with still like sort of new ideas. Nova, but they don't really do that anymore, to be honest. And that's okay, but they don't. I'm curious to know exactly how this works, but Ghost Machine announced that one of their colorists and one of their letterers will also get equity in their company. So specifically, Ghost Machine is like a creator-owned imprint. They're published through Image, but it's basically its own entity. And they announced that colorist Brad Anderson and letterer Rob Lay are exclusive to their titles, and they get to share equity in the company. Oh, this is Rebellious Monkey wrapping up his thought, talking about that other channel, looking at JR Jr.'s art, and I don't want to hate his work because I like John Romita Jr.'s art. It reminds me of Jack Kirby's art a little. Oh, yeah, I think that there's no question that John Romita Jr. is, he especially loves Marvel Comics, and so he'll always love guys like his father and Jack Kirby and John Buscema, definitely in that mold. Definitely in that mold. Yeah, right. They did try to make a K-pop hero. I think she's worked okay in their video games. Luna Snow. They haven't really put her in the comics in a good way. Darkhawk is a decent example. Of course, that does go back to the 90s. But yeah, Darkhawk was a new idea. They just don't create lots of new characters. It's mostly riffs on existing characters. Let's see. I want to talk a little bit more about this Ghost Machine thing. So both Brad Anderson and Rob Lay are now featured on the Ghost Machine site. They have profiles for all their writers and artists. And I guess they've been with them since the beginning. What I'm very curious about is, they say that their creators don't just sort of co-own what they work on, that they have equity in the company. And I don't know exactly what that means. I haven't seen that defined. I think, you guys tell me if this makes sense. I think it means that, you share a certain percentage of the profits, including if it was licensed for other media or toys or things like that. I think that's what it means, is if you work on it, but it might literally just mean that you get equity in whatever Ghost Machine as a company makes, across, even if you didn't work on that title. So I don't really know. Yeah, I heard that Brad has been their colorist with Jeff Johns and Gary Frank for a long time. I've heard that. Oh, wow. It seems like Ghost Machine is doing well. The only one I had a lot of interest in is Redcoat. I think that Redcoat is kind of funny, looks cool, is different. I like that they're trying all sorts of different things, including, horror, sci-fi, superhero stuff. I'm glad they're trying all of that. But I haven't really found myself too interested in Giger or what is it pronounced? Geiger? I don't know. It's just not for me. Or Rook. I tried. It wasn't really for me. but I don't know. Yeah, I don't understand how their ownership model works either, because they talk about how creators get equity, and I just don't quite know what that means. I wish I did. I wish I could explain it better. Since I'm the host with the most, baby. I don't know where that was going. This just looked cool to me. I like big covers and big art with lots and lots of characters, but Skybound is already celebrating the 1-year anniversary of their Energon Universe. That 1 year came by pretty fast. So to celebrate, they got Jason Howard to draw 4 variant connecting covers. That'll appear across Destro #1, Scarlet #1, Transformers #9, and Void Rivals #10. So, yeah, the characters from across all of that will sort of appear here. And that just looked fun. So I just thought I'd share it. Yeah, it's been a year already, but yeah. Yeah, because Void Rivals took a small hiatus, and issue 10 comes out like in a week or 2 or something like that. I hope that they do consider releasing something like that as a print, but we'll see. Maybe. Jason Howard works pretty loose, though. I don't know that he necessarily like needed a ton of reference. You know, like his Optimus Prime is kind of blocky, not super detail oriented, which is fine. I'm just saying, I don't know. Like, you know, I look at like Devastator here, and I look at his arm, and I'm like, well, that doesn't exactly look like, you know, a machine. It just sort of looks like a robot arm. I don't know. So I don't know how much he used. That is a lot of things. I have to, like, I've always loved covers like this. The guys like, you know, George Perez, for instance, he was great at doing these. Some other artists have done things with tons of people, like Scott Koblish has been doing some lately. And just even the laying it out and like sort of going like, well, how many characters do I need to include? Which ones need more prominence? And then, like, what's the perspective? There's a lot to figure out mathematically, I have to imagine, when you create something like this. A lot to measure out. A lot to measure out. But it looks cool. As long as I'm talking about Skybound, I thought I'd mention this as well. They've launched an interactive Walking Dead game. Specifically, it's called Solve to Survive. That sounds like something... What's it from those Saw movies? It sounds like something Jigsaw would say. I want to play a game. Solve to survive. If you don't solve this Rubik's Cube in enough time, I'm going to drop some hot acid on your head. All right, I'm pretty good at Rubik's Cube. Oh, no. Acid. All right, so what is it? It's going to be 3 community puzzles that I guess a group of people can work to solve, and it's going to take place over 3 months. It's going to come out on Those Beyond's platform. Those Beyond is like a game developer for this kind of game, and they're partnering with Skybound. And everyone gets to solve it at the same time. It's going to involve role play, interactive chats, puzzle solving activities. It launches this May. First to Skybound insiders. I am not one, so I won't get to play it. It will all culminate at San Diego Comic-Con. It's like they almost planned this. And players that play this can actually win physical prizes and stuff like that from Skybound. Could be fun. Could be fun. I've never done one of those sort of augmented reality games, I think that they're called. Has anybody out there ever done one of those? One time I did one of those puzzle rooms. I loved that thing. The escape rooms. That thing was awesome. That was years ago, but I did do that once. I probably enjoy augmented reality type games. When would I have the time? Last piece of Skybound news I wanted to share is that they're launching a Transformers omnibus. So they're going to reprint the 80s and 90s Marvel run of Transformers, similar to their upcoming G.I. Joe Compendium. They're going to do a Transformers Compendium as well. First one is set for release February 18th, 2025. It's already listed on Amazon, for instance. It's going to include issues 1 through 44, including issue 3 when the Transformers teamed up with Spider-Man. That was before they sort of decided Transformers would be its own thing. They had Nick Fury and Spider-Man and a couple other Marvel characters show up in issue 3. And never again. It's going to retail for $64.99. I think for 44 issues, that's a pretty damn good value. And then there's discounts on Amazon right now. It's selling for $58. Not bad, not bad. If you haven't read them, or if you want to just read them all together, that's a pretty good value in my opinion. I sincerely may consider getting this. I used to have those issues, sold them all, so I don't have them anymore. It's likely that it's going to print on newsprint because they did announced that the G.I. Joe one would be printed on newsprint to emulate the colors better. They didn't specifically say that in any of the press releases I saw for this one, but the pricing and the amount of issues is very similar, so I bet that they will. We'll see. Can't buy the original issues for that price. Yeah, well, because they weren't printed in quite the same quantities as other popular things at the time. Oh, that's an interesting point. Circuit Breaker, for those who didn't read it, was basically a sort of an anti-hero character. She hated the Transformers and she had powers, but that was a Marvel creation. So that would be very interesting to know exactly what they do. I haven't seen that. Are they just going to draw over that character? Are they going to cut those pages? Then the story wouldn't make sense. So that's a really good point, actually, that Circuit Breaker is probably co-owned or completely owned possibly by Marvel. Even though she was exclusive to the Transformers comic. You're right, that was a completely original character, not based on anything else. Yeah, well, right. Wait a minute. Can we even have Spider-Man in it? Probably not. How would they even... Spider-Man is a huge part of issue 3, and that's like that was when it was a 4-issue series, which I think actually became a 5-issue miniseries before it became ongoing. How are they going to address that? Now I've got all sorts of questions that honestly did not occur to me. I wonder if they'll just sort of, they literally might do this, not have the pages in it and just have a page of text explaining what happened. You could do that. Ooh, that would not be as fun though. That would not be as fun, but there's a big chance that they may actually not have. They may just cut out the pages with Spider-Man and Circuit Breaker and just have text telling us what happened. You've seen the Spider... Yeah, what did IDW do? Because IDW had the rights and did some reprints. I wonder what IDW did. I wish I could look it up on the fly, but I'm hosting a show, so I'll have to look it up later. But I'd be curious to see what IDW did for the Transformers issue 3 as well as Circuit Breaker. I don't think that they're going to include the UK Transformers UK stuff. I just don't get the impression that they would. They could, but I don't think they will. You think that they maybe came to a financial agreement with Marvel? It's entirely possible. They seem to be on good terms, Skybound and Robert Kirkman, with people. But, for instance, Invincible just had its animated adaptation of the issue where Invincible met Spider-Man, and they didn't use Spider-Man. They used a stand-in called Agent Spider that really didn't look like Spider-Man. Hold on, somebody said that they have the IDW one. I have the IDW one, and I think that it was text only. That's what I'm starting to suspect it could be. Previous reprints did not remove Circuit Breaker. It's possible Marvel might sort of charge a little something for that, but probably doesn't care because they're not going to use Circuit Breaker anywhere else. We'll see. We'll see. Let's talk about DC Comics versus Volkswagen, or Volkswagen, as in the people's car. Lovely. DC Comics and Warner Brothers, or not but same company, they have recently tried to extend the Blue Beetle trademark, registering it for, basically, I didn't want to type it all up, a wide variety of toys, action figures, backpacks, thermoses, blah, blah, blah. Also, vehicles like Hot Wheels and stuff like that, they said. Maybe that's where it became an issue. Let me go into it. Thank you for the super chat, Angus Honkton. Hi, Chris. I'm catching you live from the UK. Well, hello, UK from America. For the first time ever, as I'm sitting up with my 2-week-old daughter. Congratulations. Hope you keep making the show, plus your others, for a long, long time. I hope so, too. Things like your super chat there, and people, if you want to hit like, if you haven't subscribed yet, that stuff helps me a lot. So if you can do that, that helps. So yeah, so starting off, DC tried to extend their trademark beyond just using it on the comic book, okay? Now, Volkswagen Aktiengesellschaft, I probably butchered that, based in Washington, D.C., basically the U.S. part of Volkswagen, have issued 2 requests, both granted by the U.S. trademark offices. What they've asked is that the time period to register opposition to DC's trademark be granted, and that was. Typically, if you're going to oppose a trademark, and you can't just put all your evidence out there right away, you will ask for an extension to be able to file that. And, so trust me, Volkswagen is getting ready to contest the Blue Beetle trademark. A little bit of history. Blue Beetle actually debuted back in 1939. The Beetle vehicle debuted in 1938. However, it was then known as the Type 1. It was slowly nicknamed the Beetle. DC obtained Blue Beetle. Remember, that was originally, I think, a Fox Features Syndicate character, and then Charlton bought the rights. DC didn't get the rights to Blue Beetle until 1983. Volkswagen, meanwhile, officially changed the name of their car back in 1968. So that's all to say that basically Volkswagen has probably been using the word Beetle and having Blue Beetle cars for longer than the character has actively been protecting that trademark. I think that DC and, movies from like Warner Brothers can easily keep the trademark for Blue Beetle for at least the comics. Probably for things like action figures and stuff like that too. I bet you anything that it is specifically once they start talking about making vehicles, like say a Hot Wheels vehicle, or even like, a remote control car, maybe even a plane or something. As soon as it crosses over into vehicles, that's where Volkswagen is probably putting its foot down and saying, no, like that is the one area where we should be able to prove that we have had that as a viable trademark for a long time. I bet you anything. In other words, I bet that this gets settled somewhat amicably, but for now, DC filed an extension on their trademark, and Volkswagen has asked for time to rebut that, and that time has been granted. Well, I'm sorry to share such dumb news with you. Let's see. They are going to court, and here in South America, they just launched together a new car with Wonder Woman driving it. Oh, I don't know anything about that, I have to admit. There doesn't seem to be a lot of overlap. But if you've walked down the toy aisles these days, there's always like toy cars that are called like the Chewbacca car, and it's just, like a sports car painted brown with a bandolier on it, so they just do this weird stuff. I'm speculating a little, saying that that's where I think Volkswagen is having the issue, but we'll see. I mean, do they want the whole trademark for just Blue Beetle? I guess theoretically that's possible. I don't think that they would. I don't think that they would, because I think that DC would have a pretty solid case that, you know, a character has more or less been in publication since 1938 with that name, and they've certainly been using it actively since 83. No, Andy's got a great point. It does not bode well for DC's new superhero character, Blue Cybertruck. Blue Cybertruck might incur Elon's wrath, and it doesn't help at all that Blue Cybertruck's teen sidekick is named X. Just X. I made that up about the Chewbacca car. If that's a real one, that was a coincidence. Original Blue Beetle, when does it go into public domain? I'm trying to remember how many years it is. Isn't it something crazy like 95 years from the original publication? I think it's 95 years. So the first issue of the Dan Garrett Blue Beetle would go into the public domain in, wow, actually 2034? About 10 years from now? That sounds about right. I'm guessing, but I think it would be about 10 years from now. Chewbacca car stocks go brr right now. Don't you mean that they go brr? Perfect impression. Happy to nail it, folks. No, CrossGen didn't have any trouble with Scion, but Scion is a single word that means something. So that's a trickier thing to trademark. You have to be very specific for what you'd trademark that for. And I think Toyota could only get it for just like that car and that like certain car related merchandise. You're right. I do love comics and I sell cars. DC, Volkswagen, I am the perfect person to mediate this. And for the low, low price of $1 million US, I would be happy to mediate this difference and make sure that everybody, including my wallet, is happy. I'm happy to help. I'm happy to do that. Uniquely qualified. And I'm even a college-educated guy, man. I'm pretty smart. A little bit of the Boston came out there. DC's sort of pocket-sized graphic novels, they're coming out very soon, and it's been announced what they'll be priced at. So DC's Compact Comics is the name for these. They're going to be 5.5 by 8.5 inches, basically manga-sized, and they're going to be $10. $10 for like about, some of them like up to 12 issues. It's pretty damn good value in my opinion. $10 for 12 issues? Yes, please. This is smart. This is smart. They're going to have 2 releases a month starting, I think, next month. Here's the titles that they've announced initially. Batman Court of Owls. Great jumping on point for Batman. Watchmen, a classic. All-Star Superman. Perfect in and of itself. Far Sector, I've heard good things about. Batman Hush, sure. Wonder Woman Earth 1, okay. Harley Quinn and the Gotham City Sirens, I could see who that could appeal to. Joker, American Vampire Book 1, that's good. That's a little outside the box, but could reach a different audience. And Catwoman, Trail of the Catwoman. Honestly, I'm probably going to try some of these books that I haven't read before. I've never read Far Sector. I've heard good things. I'll probably pick that one up. I never read Wonder Woman Earth 1, but I heard good things. For $10, yeah, I'll pick that up. I think it's a good value. I think that this is really smart. I think this is something that literally could be the future of comics for all we know. That price, that size. Look, yes, manga has some great original stories and some great art, but don't discount the value of this much story for $10. Don't discount how easy it is to carry around, to throw this literally in your pocket if you need to, but certainly a backpack, compared to like 12 of these. There are advantages there on the physical and the price side. So I'll personally be very interested to see how these sell. My prediction, maybe like hotcakes, which I've heard sell well, which is also strange because I don't know if everybody likes hotcakes. Excellent question. And I don't know the answer. I suspect color. But we will see. None of these have ever been printed in black and white before, but it's possible. It's possible. I'll keep my eye out. I think I could convince people to read things like All-Star Superman or Watchmen for $10 more easily than I can a trade paperback for $15 to $20 that's probably only got 6 issues. I don't know. I like the digest size Conans. I have a few of those. They are the same size as our long-running Commando comics here in the UK. We had this size in Spanish since a while ago from ECC Comics. They come in handy 2-try series, and they come in full color. That's why I really think that they'll be color. I really do. Well, I think that, it would be hard to argue that Watchmen, or even Far Sector, since it's Green Lantern, I think it would be hard to argue that they don't benefit from color. Some books do. We'll see. I think that these will sell pretty well. I think that there's a lot of people out there that have even read stuff like Watchmen that might be like, for $10, maybe I'll just pick up another copy or something like that. We'll see. We will see. But I think it's a good idea. And I'm glad that, a big company is trying it with like a lot of different titles at once. We'll see. We'll see. So they'll release like 2 of these a month for the next several months. This is a quick one, but James Gunn here invited a bunch of Superman creators to the set of the Superman movie. And I think that that's kind of cool to get their input and let them see. So he posted this to Threads. If you haven't seen this picture, he posted it to Threads. He's pretty active there. As far as who we've got, look at that. Frank Quitely. I'm such a humongous fan. So All-Star Superman alone. But yeah, that's awesome. He's there. James Gunn himself and Jim Lee. Well, that makes sense. In the middle here, we've got some of these people, just to be clear, are people that work in comic book distribution or for Warner Brothers. So who would we care about? We care about the comic creators. We've got Kevin Maguire here. Who else do we have? We have Scott Snyder here in the middle. We've got Joshua Williamson. Hey, he's been on the show. John Ostrander. John Ostrander, by the way, underrated writer. I loved his Suicide Squad stuff. In the back, we've got Jerry Ordway. We've got Dan Jurgens, and even Jason Aaron. I wasn't pointing out the people that work for Warner Brothers or work in distribution, but yeah. There is a ton of talent. Thank God there wasn't a freak lightning storm that wiped out, like half of our active, beloved Superman creators. Gunn does seem to respect comic creators more than the average person in movies, so that's nice. Didn't I point out Jerry Ordway? I thought that I did. Yeah, Jerry Ordway right here. Boop. Anyway. I thought I did. So, some really cool creators is all. I've always heard that Ostrander's Spectre is good, and I've never read that. That is not Louise Simonson, no. That is, if you're looking at this lady, that's Anne DePies, I think is how you pronounce it, but she works for Warner Brothers in like publicity or something like that. Or she works for DC in publicity. Well, they didn't get everybody that's worked on it to show up, but yeah. They got a bunch, that's all. What about Mafalda? Isn't that a popular Argentinian comic? Noted. Thank you. Moving on. Just thought that was fun. I just like giving shout outs to comics that not everybody knows about sometimes on this. And there's a comic coming up that looks very funny to me. It's a superhero satire that's got Mark Russell behind it. Like I said, I'm a fan. So he's returning to his satire of superheroes that's called My Bad. That's Ahoy Comics that publishes it, and there's going to be a third volume of it. It's called Escape from Peculiar Island. This is co-written, I wanted to say, by Bryce Ingman, and there's artist Peter Krause. I definitely want to give props to everybody involved. The first issue is said to focus on the Batman stand-in, The Chandelier. As you can see, this is like him. He runs around with a chandelier on his head. He's got a sports car with a chandelier. He has various lamp-based themes on his vehicles and gadgets. But he's dealing with the IRS over what he claims are business expenses. For instance, they're saying that there was a lamp-themed submarine called the Lamprey, that's a good pun, that he only used once. That's pretty hard to justify as a business expense. And so the IRS gets the rights, and the government can use him in ads and stuff like this one, warning about genital warts. There's also Captain Ohio, who keeps the Rust Belt safe from Nazis. You wouldn't think that Ohio would have to deal with Nazis, but that is a modern thing to deal with. So anyway, yeah, My Bad, Escape from Peculiar Island comes out May 15th. That's this Sunday. That Wednesday. I know days of the week. Miércoles. I know, the chandelier. It's ridiculous. It's ridiculous. SyFy ordered a comic book adaptation to series. So the SyFy channel announced that it's going to adapt this Image comic, Revival, as a show. It'll launch sometime next year in 2025. Revival's based on a book by Tim Seeley and artist Mike Norton. It ran at Image from 2012 through 2017. It's pretty cool. They are everywhere, unfortunately. Like, and honestly, if you've seen the preview pages, like, Russell satirizes that pretty damn well. But anyway. And as to what this premise was, I understand how it could make a good TV show, because here's the premise. The comic follows a small Wisconsin town where, for some reason, the dead revive, but not like as a typical sort of rotting zombie apocalypse thing. No, they just come back to life normal, unexplained initially. They come back as normal people, and meanwhile, while all that happens, this local police officer and a single mom, Dana Cypress, she has to investigate a murder in this small Wisconsin town where both the living and all these revived dead have motives. So she's got like a large pool of suspects she has to solve. Well, there you have it, folks. It's got the Andy Kuhn stamp of approval. That's pretty darn good. Was there a TV show with a similar premise? If so, I didn't see it, but who knows? I don't know. It's all in the execution. It's all in the execution. We have, unfortunately, seen SyFy pick up and drop a lot of superhero shows. Didn't they also do that Krypton show that at least had Lobo and Zod and stuff like that? But yeah, Deadly Class, that was a really good TV adaptation. I agree. And it's too bad that it didn't last. It's too bad. Last piece of news, folks. Get ready. Get ready. A He-Man Ninja Turtles comic? Oh, yes. So, this comes out in September. It's going to be a 4-issue series. Again, written by Tim Seeley. Art by Freddie Williams II. Here's the premise. When the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles came across Krang and Shredder making a deal with some otherworldly demon mage named Skeletor, things got hella weird. This is the official press release. I didn't write that. And they ended up in Eternia. It turns out when you mix Utrom mutagen with demonic magic, you get a nasty purple poison, and it's brought Eternia to the brink of chaos. So Leo, Raph, Donnie, and Mikey are teaming up with the Masters of the Universe to kick some blue bony butt. I don't like it when my butt is kicked. That was actually a pretty good impression. The only problem is He-Man is missing in action. That is a problem. And I don't know how I put this out of order, but if you aren't aware, Mattel recently made a He-Man Ninja Turtles crossover toy line that's like in stores now. And I guess it must have done well because Dark Horse is going to publish this as a 4-issue comic series. It's called Masters of the Universe Origins Turtles of Grayskull. Ooh, people like Freddie Williams. That's good. That's good. The figures are already, I think, out, so this isn't that crazy. Let's see. That was legit a very good Skeletor. That's good because I didn't even watch He-Man when I was a kid. I didn't really like it. But I think I can do Skeletor, you bumbling nincompoops. Yeah. Freddie Williams 4 is where the art really ramps up. Yes, Freddie Williams just keeps leveling up, man. We're getting all the way up to Freddie Williams 4. So that's the news, folks. Let's talk about some comics that came out this week. Give me a moment here. I was charging my camera for this, and so I need to take a minute to do some technical mumbo-jumbo, as they call it. This is very complex stuff involving a couple plugs, a couple on-off buttons. Yeah, it's not everybody can do it, but I can. Feel free to ask some questions while I mess around with this. When I put in the chapters, it means people can skip this stuff. Present, extra camera, USB. Oop, that's zoomed way in too far. Here, I'll show you. Look at that. That doesn't look good. First, we'll make sure that it's focused properly. Oh, that's good. Good job, Chris. Wait, did my sister jump in? I'm here. I made it. All right. That's my sister. What a fan. Have I tried turning it off and on again? Somebody says. That's what I'm working on. I have not seen the latest Doctor Who episodes, but we need to, Chrissy and I, because it stars her favorite performer, Jinx Monsoon. My wife loves Jinx Monsoon, so we are going to have to watch Doctor Who very soon. Let's see. Try it this time. Your browser can't access your devices. Great. So basically, I bumped the cords in some sort of a weird way, and I have to start over. That's great. Always happy to screw up like that. Normally, I have this more or less all set, and I just need to maybe turn it on. But I was charging the camera while I was doing the show, so yeah. That would be kind of cool if Carol Ann Ford could come back at some point. That would be nice. All right, trying this again. Turn that on. This is where the viewership just keeps going up and up and up. Everybody likes this stuff. You've got to be kidding me. The Fallout show was awesome. Chrissy and I watched that, and we haven't like played the games or anything. So I was like, am I going to follow this? But we liked it so much. We were like, oh my gosh, we want to binge this. But we decided to be patient and only watch like one episode at a time. Like one a day. I'm just having an issue, folks, getting the camera here to work. So if I ultimately can't, I mean, of course I can just review a comic like this, but I'd prefer to be able to show you in high definition a little bit of the comics that we're looking at. That would be my preference. Oh, no. No. We've got to end the show now. My sister's going to tell something super embarrassing. I just keep trying extra camera. USB. Oh, here we go. Here we go. You get to see a little bit of my horrible workspace. Zoom in a little. Zoom back out a little. Shift this over. We are cooking. Watch this. Bam. Okay, I need to focus a little. There we go. Look at that. That looks good. All right. Thank you for your patience. That's kind of you to ask. My cats are doing well. They're still total rascals. I used to love building Lego to relax, but Jack figured out very quickly as a little baby that if he started smashing up my Lego sets, that he would get immediate attention. So I've broken them all down and stopped doing that. So he's a little bit of a rascal. When we were growing up, we didn't have YouTube or smartphones, so Chris had audio tapes of his favorite movies like Evil Dead, so he could recite it word for word. I did play with an audio recorder a lot and had a lot of embarrassing cassette tapes of me trying to do voices and stuff. So my sister is correct there. I mean, I only have about like 5 now, because like at some point, like a bird or something killed like about 25 of my koi, but they're okay. They're okay. All right. Let's talk about some of the comics that came out this week. It wasn't a huge week for me, but these are some fantastic books. Let me again recommend Fantastic Four. This is becoming one of the iconic Fantastic Four runs, and it's for a specific reason. Each issue isn't trying to explore a whole new universe or build up to some master threat like, you know, the Infinity Gauntlet. Instead, just about every issue is a one-issue story telling us something specific about the team as characters. In this one, the Fantastic Four is basically having money problems. They're living on one of Ben Grimm's, The Thing's, family ranches, or not one of, the family ranch out in Arizona. And they need to make ends meet. So the Thing and the Human Torch get jobs. And they specifically end up getting jobs at the local grocery store. And there's a competition to like see who gets the best customer satisfaction scores. And these two, you know, they're friends, but they're very competitive. They make fun of each other and tease each other a lot. And they each want to prove that they are the best, that they're better than the other guy. And so they just do everything they can while they're at work to prove themselves. It's quite charming. And it builds into something very relevant. Very relevant, okay? So some guy that works for sort of like a magazine comes to interview Johnny Storm and is like, it's sort of a gotcha thing where he's saying like, hey, you know, you used to be a teen idol. You were so popular and now you're like here working a minimum wage job. Like that's so uncool. And, you know, he really hurts Johnny's feelings. And after like a whole issue of the Thing and the Human Torch just absolutely decimating each other with insults behind, like, to each other's face, Ben steps up and is like, hey, like, what is your problem? He goes, this guy is serving his community. He's supporting his family. He's doing a good job at it. And he looks great. He was making fun of Johnny's mustache, and he's like, guess what? Johnny makes it work. And the Fantastic Four usually are rich. They're having a specific like issue where their assets are all tied up right now. And you know what? It's just, it makes those of us that like have blue collar jobs, because let's face it, I do. And I like have nothing to apologize for, and talks about how heroic that is in its own right to like, go in and do your best and provide for your family and stuff like that. And I'm like, that is cool. It's like very cool how like Ben steps up and defends his friend too. It's something you don't always get to see because they're usually sniping at each other. But of course they are. The Fantastic Four is a family. So there's just this specific instance that brings that defensiveness out. And the Thing like really says some wonderful things about Johnny. And he's like, hey, did you mean all those things? He's like, don't even say that to me again. He's like, just don't talk about it. But it's really, really beautiful, to be honest. And it shows them being heroes in a different way. A lot of these issues, like I say, are just one-off stories. And usually it's a science fiction mystery to be solved within that issue. This one is more about them just how they operate day to day. And I find that interesting and charming. I also think some of these covers by Alex Ross are some of the best that he's done. I love that like Thing is just sort of using this scanner, and I don't know, it's just nice. It's really, really nice. I think that Ryan North is writing a hell of a run on Fantastic Four, where I care about these characters right now. I think that they are really, really nice. They're really smart. They think of new, clever ways to use their powers. They solve problems. They save people's lives. But this issue really makes these two characters likable. They're not against hard work. These are people that have saved the world and traveled to other galaxies, but that isn't necessarily the thing that makes them heroes. Like, yes, they're brave, but they're also like people that are willing to put in the work and they care about people. That's why they're brave. They do risky things because they care about people, and there's not some world-ending threat here, but they still are doing things that show that they care about people. I really like it. I really do. Yes, there's clever little things like that too, that like, I don't know if it's Ryan North putting that in the script or if that's the artist in this. Who's his name? Last name is Gomez. Let me look it up. Carlos Gomez. It's so clever. Ben Grimm has gigantic fingers, right? So how is he like sort of doing his day-to-day job here? Because he has to take notes, right? There's a page here, and it's not like zoomed in on or anything, but yeah, okay, you can't really see it super well, but yes, he's got a pencil taped to his main finger so that he can like, still sort of like write little notes. It's cute. It and it's in like every panel if you look for it. It's great. That's the thing. They probably could borrow money from, say, Alicia Masters. She's a world-class sculptor. They could borrow money from his aunt. Instead, they are staying at her farm, but they're trying to earn their own money to pay for their own room and board. They're not trying to put another family member out and make them respond, because it's a big family. It's more than just the four of them. In the current comics, Reed and Sue have 2 children, and Ben and his wife Alicia have adopted 2 children, a Skrull and a Kree that are both kids. So that's a big family. That's 9 people. So yeah, they're not going to make one person pay for everything. They're going to try to earn their keep. Anyway, I just really liked this issue a lot. and I really recommend this run. I think it's something special. It's very easy to jump into because, like I say, they're not doing some massive arc. There's ongoing continuity here, but every story or every issue tells its own story. Pretty nice. What else came out? Last Mermaid continues to blow my mind how good it looks. Take a look at what Derek Kirk Kim is doing with this. This is a post-apocalyptic story in a sort of Mad Max deserty world, but that follows a mermaid. We don't know her name yet or anything. She's got a tiny little pet called Lottie, the axolotl. And in this, the big problem she's had so far is, she's getting across the desert in this mech suit, but the mech suit is damaged. Her water is contaminated. She found a little oasis, but unfortunately, that oasis would be very valuable, and there's a lot of big monsters in it. And she's doing everything she can to just sort of save her pet and then eventually herself. And I mean, the action is incredible. The artwork is just gorgeous. It all looks sort of like cells from a movie. They're just beautifully painted. Beautiful. The colors are incredible. And then every once in a while, it's paced brilliantly too, by the way. And every once in a while, there's like a cool, huge action shot of some sort. Post-apocalyptic, monsters, mermaids, mech suits, all sorts of amazing things. And every issue, she just barely figures out how to solve one problem, and it ends on a cliffhanger. So it's like I don't want to go page by page because it's very dialogue light. In that regard, it reads kind of quickly like a lot of manga, but it's got very creative new sort of enemies that you haven't seen before, and it looks fantastic. This issue introduces a mysterious new character, obviously not a mermaid, legs. It's so fun, folks. It reads so quickly because it's like big action packed, and it just is gorgeous, just gorgeous colors. Like, you look at this, and this is sort of outside in the desert world, right? And so the yellow sort of makes sense, but I'm used to seeing a lot of like browns, yellows, oranges, and instead there's this interesting decision where we're using some purples in here, which you wouldn't necessarily consider, but it does sort of give the impression that, okay, we're in a bit of a valley that's in a little bit of shadow here. And it just reads very cleanly. It's a great color palette. When we're underwater or we're looking at the mermaid in her mech suit full of water, everything's tinged with blues and greens. It looks great. Obviously it's a different size here, but the panel to panel storytelling is really impressive. Because the panels tend to be so even, that helps with the pacing, and it means that a panel like this or the 2-page spread that I showed earlier can really have a lot of impact for a moment. It really it does something to you up here where you pause just a little bit longer on a bigger panel. It's very educated storytelling, but there's also a lot of like behind the scenes, just design and lore and thought that goes into this world. It feels very fully formed. This feels like a very real story on some level. And every time I read it, it ends on a cliffhanger where I'm sincerely excited to read the next issue. I could see a little bit of Mitchell's opinion here, very European. I could see a little bit of that, sure. I see a little manga, a little European. Basically, I just see some top-notch storytelling. And the character is just very charming. She looks very cute and innocent, but she's actually quite capable. She's a lot smarter than you might just think. She is not dim-witted or doltish or anything. She's very clever. She's also dangerous. She can, of course, swim well, but she also has claws that she can grow out. She's out of her element because she's in this desert world, but she's very capable. And it's great seeing her solve problems. She solves, like every issue has her solving something, and you see her putting in the work to solve a problem. Like the mech suit is damaged in a particular way, and she has to think through how to get that working again, or things like that. Oh, Finn says that they've got a letter in the latest Fantastic Four. So let's hop in and see. That's very cool. Hey, it's the very first one. It's the very first one. And the editor replies to Finn saying, always nice to see a shout out to former Fantastic Four assistant editor Mark Sumerak in these pages. Glad you've been enjoying our efforts, Finn. Finn, with a name like that, you really need to be writing into The Last Mermaid, which is still looking for a title for its letter pages, it says. And again, I'll just say, I think it should be called Waterlogs. Congratulations, Finn. That's lovely. The last thing I think I'll talk about on any real level is the latest Transformers. It continues to surprise me how excited I am to read Transformers, because I was a fan of Transformers when I was a little kid, loved those toys, really enjoyed the cartoon. Pretty much fell out of it as an adult for a long, long time. Yeah, I saw some of the live action movies, but I didn't buy any of like the toys past, the 80s. And I didn't think of myself as necessarily a Transformers fan anymore. But then this comic came out and I realized, no, I do love the characters and the concepts in it as long as it's executed well. And even though Daniel Warren Johnson is only writing now and Jorge Corona has stepped in, it feels still like the same characters and story. And it's going to break my heart if Daniel Warren Johnson stops writing this, because boy, does he make me care about all of these characters. Spike, Carly, Cliff Jumper. I never cared about Cliff Jumper before. The only thing if I had to even tell you anything about Cliff Jumper, I was like, oh yeah, he looks just like Bumblebee and has Casey Kasem's voice, but he's not as cool as Bumblebee. This is a Cliff Jumper I care about. This is the first Transformer I ever got as a kid, was Thundercracker. And Starscream was always the more important jet in the cartoon, so I was sort of like wanted Starscream instead. But this makes Thundercracker fascinating. Thundercracker in this is a Decepticon, but you can see that this is a character that has empathy. And he's having trouble accepting what the Decepticons do. For instance, in this, their leader is Soundwave, and he's taking over a nuclear-powered aircraft carrier, okay, for the energy. And Thundercracker has no problem, it's just sort of like strafing it and throwing like the ships over and stuff like that. But even when he's shot at by like, the admiral on the boat, he pities their weakness, he says, and he lets them go into life rafts. Thundercracker is like, you're too weak. I would get no pleasure, killing you or anything like that. He pities them. And then like it really surprises him when Soundwave is like, oh, well, sorry, there can't be any witnesses. And he kills all of these soldiers. I think that they're setting it up that Thundercracker might be somebody that switches sides. And I think that's really interesting. Carly is really, really angry over like the stuff that's been happening in this sort of very fresh battle between Autobots and Decepticons. And she makes some mistakes, but the Transformers sort of are extending her a lot of grace in her anger. She's making mistakes, but they're extending a lot of grace to give her time to come to terms and to learn. And RC specifically says that she wants to have permission to take on Carly as her like iron apprentice to train her. It's interesting. So there's all sorts of stuff with lore, and there's all sorts of cool battles. Jorge Corona, by the way, is a heck of an artist. So do I absolutely adore Daniel Warren Johnson? Yes, but Jorge Corona more than makes a beautiful, easy to read, and exciting comic here. Really, really good. All sorts of interesting things keep happening. The Decepticons raise their old ship, the Nemesis. We've got Constructicons. We have the return of Astro Train, a triple changer, and he's built up as a big threat. He's really powerful. So all these characters are built up in really interesting and dynamic ways. In other words, it isn't just throwing in 2 or 3 good guys and 2 or 3 bad guys and smashing them together. It makes you legit care about these characters, which is bonkers to think about. Oh, yeah. That's what this book does have some stakes. And when they decide to like be bad, the Decepticons have done things like, just stomped on people or squished them in their hands. It's a little bit more violent than you ever got with the kids cartoon. So the stakes are a little bit higher. People do die in this. It makes the bad guys pretty detestable. And yet we haven't had Megatron as the leader. He's been missing. Starscream got to be leader. And we saw how he would do a uniquely terrible job. Why he would do a terrible job. He was just he didn't even care about his own men. Now, Soundwave is much more clinical and scientific, but he's in his own way just as cruel. So it's fascinating how good it is, folks. If you haven't read Transformers before, this doesn't rely on any previous lore. It riffs on previous ideas, but it's all a fresh start. It's only up to issue 8. I think that there's a trade paperback of the first 6 that just came out. So anyway. Have I seen Transformers Animated or Transformers Prime? Nope. Just the original 80s cartoon and the 4 Japanese seasons that followed it, or 3 Japanese seasons that followed it. Headmasters, Master Force, Victory. Yeah. So I saw all that, but no, none of the other follow-up things like Beast Wars or whatever. I never saw any of that. No. Yeah, Starscream did shoot up a hospital, and you're right. Soundwave is killing more people, so he's just as detestable, just in a different way. So we'll see. I really like it. The other stuff personally that I read this week, pretty good. Birds of Prey does unique, cool sci-fi stuff, makes the characters interesting. I hope Leonardo Romero returns to the book because I really liked his art on the first arc. This one has 2 artists that I do like, and I've seen them before in other books. Is it Case and Guidry? Jonathan Case and Gavin Guidry each write different pages in this, and they're both very good. I just really, really admired what the original artist did, who did this cover, by the way. And then I am keeping up with the Sacrificers. This one will definitely read better in trade paperback because it's such a big, epic, supernatural fantasy type story that individual issues like I'm like, where was I? Oh yeah. In fact, one thing I will say that Marvel does well that I would like to see other places do is have like a recap page here. Like you could probably rearrange some of this, like and just have like a small paragraph that explains what's been happening, just as a catch up. It would really help somebody like me. Maybe I'm dumb. Maybe I'm unique in saying like, oh, I need that. I can't remember where things were, but that would really help me personally. Oh, we've actually got we still got some time, don't we? Tell you what, maybe I'll draw something. Maybe I'll draw something and just take some questions. Let's see. Please read Shadow of the Green Goblin. I think it's probably the best Spider-Man story to come out in 10 years at least. Is that a recent one? I have to admit that whatever that is totally ran under my radar. I don't know Batman Dark Age. Oh, wait, you mean Batman Dark Age by Allred and Russell, right? Yes, I did read issue 1 of that. That was good. Dark Age, Jesus. That was some interesting logic. Yeah, there are some differences there. Last Mermaid is a much quieter story in its own way, though. maximum darkage. What was I thinking? I think I've got a previous drawing over here. Let me see. Something I can work on. Yeah, I could. Hold on. I love J.M. DeMatteis, so okay, I'll keep that in mind. It does read well in trade paperback. I imagined that it just would, and I don't think that that's necessarily Rick's goal. It's just that it's a complex story. It's a complex story. Interesting. I haven't kept up with Chainsaw Man. Maybe I will at some point. Space Ghost does apparently have an ongoing book. I didn't pick that one up. What should I draw? I could there's a couple things that I could work on. I could ink this Gundam, but that's not necessarily too important. I'd laid out some standard superhero fight stuff I was thinking of inking at some point. But you know what I think I'll do is I had drawn sort of like a one-page gag strip for Radiant Black with the character Marshall at the video store. I think I'll just sort of peck away lightly at the backgrounds in this and try to look up and take some questions. I think I'll just do that. Yeah, we talked about the Nika Kirby figure at the very beginning of the show, but thanks. Draw myself as a work? Oh, I see. As a worm. That's me. I'm just a lowly little worm. I think I did hear that there's going to be a new Johnny Quest comic, but I'll be honest. Johnny Quest is a little bit of a blind spot, as in I've never watched that cartoon. So I through cultural osmosis, I'm kind of aware of what it is, but it doesn't really, it's not something I care too much about because I just never really watched it. Yeah. Let's see. There are still video stores in our universe. Here in Seattle, there's a place called Scarecrow Video. It's the world's largest video rental store. It's amazing. It's like 2 floors. It's humongous. It's good. You know what? Well, yeah, I'll use this one. I'm just going to draw sort of fake tiny video rental box covers in the background. It's boring, but it's kind of, sometimes mindless stuff is kind of fun in its own way. Oh, I saw the best old movie recently. How did it all happen? So John Mulaney is a comedian that I like, and he had a live show on Netflix last week called Everybody's in LA. It was a live show, so it was kind of like sloppy in some ways, but it was interesting. But anyway, the reason I even bring it up is they had a theme song to it called To Live and Die in LA by Wang Chung, which I remember from the mid-'80s. And then I was like, wait, wasn't there also a movie called To Live and Die in LA? And so I looked it up and I was like, oh, it's by William Friedkin, huh? Well, he didn't make every movie great, but I did love The Exorcist and The French Connection. And it was saying that it was like a cop thriller movie kind of in the vein of The French Connection. So I go, well, I want to see it. Well, there's literally no streaming service that has To Live and Die in LA. You can't even buy it to rent on Amazon. Like, there's nowhere that has it right now. Maybe because of those Wang Chung songs. Like, Wang Chung did the soundtrack for it. So, okay, but I want to see it. So I find out that it is been, the new 4K had been uploaded to YouTube, but it's blocked in this country by MJM. So I go, okay, well, wait a minute. I've got a VPN. So I threw on my VPN set it to another country, and I was able to watch it. And my God, To Live and Die in LA is such a great neo-noir movie. And I love noir crime type stuff. Very flawed protagonists. Oh my God, was it exciting. And by the way, it's like the first or second movie that, had in a big role, Willem Dafoe. He's a fascinating villain in it. It's all about a counterfeiter and the Secret Service agents that are going after him. But the Secret Service agent, like the main one, is pretty corrupt, and there are some amazing twists in it. And yes, like Jeff Yun just said, there is a fantastic car chase in it. Fantastic in part because one of the best car chases you'll ever see in movies is in the original movie, The French Connection. In that movie, the main detective, Popeye Doyle, races after a subway train in New York City. It's an elevated one, and he's like swerving in and out of crowded New York traffic. It's really intense. It's really well filmed, really well done. And it's like, well, how are you going to top that? He's like, I'm only going to do a car chase in To Live and Die in LA if it can at least compete, if not beat, that original one. And I think he did. It ends up that the hero races the opposite way down a highway. And it looks chaotic as hell. Keep in mind, there was no CG back in 1985. I agree. Bullet with Steve McQueen is another fantastic car chase. Really takes advantage of San Francisco. But To Live and Die in LA is fantastic. It's so dark. It's so dark. It was really good. It was really good. So you kind of have to either have a VPN to watch it or just buy the Blu-ray, which I think I'll do now. It was really good. Mad Max has very different car chases because of the environment that it's in and everything. They're great. And in my opinion, my favorite is the most recent one, Fury Road. But yeah, another good car chase if you're like curious about a great car chase, and I wouldn't put this movie on the same level, but it has a great car chase, is Ronin with Robert De Niro, and I think Jean Reno was in it. That has a great car chase in it. So anyway, just a strong recommend of a movie that I saw somewhat recently. Just a couple days ago, and I really liked it. To Live and Die in LA. And I kind of just love that song by Wang Chung. It just sounds really good to me. To live and die in LA. I'm excited for Furiosa. I really hope it's fantastic. I would say that George Miller has never really let me down. It's not like everything he made is my favorite, but none of it has been ever bad. And his Mad Max stuff is typically very, very, very good. So I'm excited for that one. I think that's only like 2 weeks, right? Haven't really kept up with exactly when that's coming out, but I think it's 2 weeks. All right, there's some comments. Sorry. You've already got your tickets. My God, I'm behind. I did see the latest Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes film. It was quite good. By the way, I support a YouTuber who's done a lot of comic book content, but now he mostly does movies, Matt Draper. And so I saw this early because I'm a Patreon supporter. He's got a retrospective of all the Planet of the Apes movies. Keep an eye out. Again, Matt Draper, great video. Really interesting to delve into the full history of Planet of the Apes. That's been a very solid series, in my opinion. This new reboot. I haven't seen all of the original. I think I only saw the first 2 of the original 5 films. I saw the Tim Burton one. Not a fan. But I really like this new series quite a bit. The Simpsons musical is great. I just mentioned Ronan. I'm glad you like Matt Draper. He's very good. Very good. You saw the worst one, I'm afraid. The Tim Burton remake is literally yeah, I think it's worse than even like the super cheap ones in the original series. It's crazy. The original's very, very good. Very good. It holds up well. Yeah, it was like 20 years ago or something. It was not great. My next video. So I haven't locked it in, but I think I found a topic that I haven't seen covered on other channels that I think would interest me anyway, which is pedigree comic collections. Pedigree collections. I think I'd like to talk about that. The only thing is there wouldn't really be a lot of visuals for it. That's the one thing. So I'm wondering if I should just make it as more of a storytelling one where I just talk to the camera and don't use a lot of visuals, or if I just sort of like struggle to just like come up with, comic cover after comic cover in an interesting way. I don't know, but I think it would be an interesting topic to discuss. We'll see. Pedigree collections. Very interesting. Yeah, a lot of people debating the what do you call it? The Tim Burton version. Yeah, Tim Burton still made 1 or 2 good movies, but that was kind of the period where he fell off for me. He's made a few good things since then, but like his best thing, in my opinion, would probably be either Ed Wood or Pee-wee's Big Adventure. Those are great movies, and I like a lot of other things, like I don't know, Beetlejuice, Sleepy Hollow, Edward Scissorhands. Those are all fun, but the time Burton did Planet of the Apes, then he was just doing stuff like like Dumbo and just like these big commercial stuff that just feels soulless and just not that interesting to me. So let's see. Thursday, I think, is the next time Jim and I will record something. We've got like something fun for that. I've been finding a lot of schlock through Tubi, Tubi. Great service, by the way. And yes, it is sad about losing Roger Corman. He gave the start to so many great people: Martin Scorsese, Jack Nicholson, James Cameron, and he did like some movies that are like so underrated. Roger Corman did. But also, even though it's sad that he passed away, he was 98. That's pretty damn good. That's pretty damn good if you can get to 98, Wednesday's pretty good, and Tim Burton, right, like directed and produced some of that, so that's good. Big Fish is good. Corpse Bride's pretty good. Some people really love it. Big Eyes is okay. Charlie and the Chocolate Factory didn't care for it at all. Did not like that, personally. Sweeney Todd, it's fine. I didn't think it added anything from like, as a translation. I don't know. Wait, does it? I didn't know that Tubi had some comic documentaries. Yeah, Tubi has classic Doctor Who. They've got all sorts of I found a cool Italian action movie from the 70s recently called The Heroin Busters. It was super entertaining. Let's see. Hey, Steve. Sorry I'm late. That's okay. Can't wait for the recap tomorrow, but Chris is okay. I understand depression sucks and everyone is seemingly on the struggle bus, but this is a great gathering of friends. I'm glad that it makes people happy to watch some of this stuff. That's good. Yeah, I'm so depressed these days, just to be clear. I'm like ridiculously, possibly dangerously depressed, just to be clear, but I'm keeping busy. I'm keeping busy just so that I don't do anything bad. But I feel miserable like all the time. All the time I feel miserable. But I seem I've got a new doctor and I'll be seeing her very soon. We'll see if there's anything different I should be doing overall. But I feel terrible. I feel miserable. But I'm trying. I'm trying to keep like making good shows and just keep on keeping on. And I shouldn't talk about it so much. I don't want to depress anybody else. So yeah, don't worry. The second one, as in they're going after like, they're cops that are going after a heroin ring. That it's filmed in like Hong Kong and Cartagena and Rome and New York. Lots of people getting shot. It's cool though. I wish I proofread that. I feel like don't worry about that, Steve. I knew what you meant. Thanks. Oh yeah, I feel plenty of appreciation from people watching this, so don't worry. I appreciate that. I appreciate that. Just saying, and it's nobody's. It's just how my brain is designed. I'm sorry. I really don't like to scare people or anything like that. I just feel miserable all the time. And stressed out. Maybe I'm just too stressed out, but it's probably just my brain chemistry. Just my brain chemistry. Thanks, Joe. You'll beat it, Chris. Just a matter of writing it out. Well, I'm still here. Yeah, so. Thank you. Thank you very much for the kind words. Thank you. I wasn't trying to get too dark. Sorry. I'm sorry. Just having a tough time, but I'm sure lots of people are. Not trying to pretend that I'm unique in some way there. To live and die in LA. Thank you. That's very, very kind. I appreciate it. I do. Anyone going to? Oh yeah, the Lake Como Comic Art Festival. Boy, that one looks so beautiful. That would be a lovely comic convention to get to go to. It's too expensive, but boy, I would love that. Love it. It just Lake Como looks gorgeous. I'd love to go there someday. I don't know when I could literally, like, how could you afford it? But I don't know. Looks incredible. Looks incredible. I picked one more thing, picked something up at con, sending it out. You picked something up at a recent convention that you're sending out? That's interesting. I feel like people are replying to something that I missed. Oh, hey, Circuitron. Let's see. There's a whole subgenre of violent Italian cop films. Right. For what it's worth, the Heroin Busters, it's too convoluted for its own good, honestly. But when it has the action, like the stunts are really cool. That's all. I hope you do get to, Andy. That would be really, really cool. That would good luck. You deserve to. There's a bunch of Comic Cons that I would like to see out there in the world. You guys know I like going to Japan. I'd love to go to a comic convention in Japan. I would think that that would be fascinating. They just had Osaka Comic Con about a week ago. I'd love to go to Angoulême in France. I think that that looks fascinating. Looks like like a real special one. What else? CCXP in Sao Paulo, Brazil looks like one I'd love to go to. There's just so many good conventions in the world. So hopefully someday I get to do that. I did hear his quote. I think he's more just sort of talking about how much he'd like to work with Chris Hemsworth again than being like literally like, yeah, I want to do a Marvel movie. But you know what? Marvel could do a lot worse than hire him. His version of the Justice League movie, that superhero movie, that looked like it would have been really interesting. I'm gonna put a clock in the background here, and I'm just trying to decide about how big I want it to be. I think that this will do. No, that did look like an interesting movie, but haven't had like enough free time to fit that one in. Maybe when it comes to like streaming or something. Right, Comic-Cat, CCXP, LUCCA, Luca? I don't know Luca, I don't think. He'd be a good fit. Yeah. I that's probably why I'm so slow. I bet if I had gone to like school for drawing or something, I bet that they would have sped me up. I'm way too slow. I could never do comics. I have done comics. I could never do a monthly superhero comic. I know that I don't have the speed it requires to hit a deadline. I just don't. I wish I did, but I don't. Yeah. I'm going to have a clock in these panels to sort of show a certain amount of time has passed. I think that'll help with the storytelling. Yeah, but you have to be really talented to be forgiven that. At the same time, every once in a while, you know what like makes me happy is like sometimes on a comic tropes video, someone will say that like my opinion is like bad because they're like, oh yeah, I don't see you drawing a comic, and my favorite thing to say is like, well, I was nominated for an Eisner. Maybe that's a small exaggeration, but like basically a book that I was in was nominated for an Eisner. I drew a story in an anthology that did get nominated back in 2011. So it's been a while. And at the same time, I'm proud of that because, like, who am I? Like, I'm not a guy that draws on any sort of like regular basis. That's a feather in the cap. Chat, what are bucket list cons you want to go to? Oh, just like, so beyond the international ones that I mentioned, guess what? I've never been to San Diego Comic-Con. I'd love to go there. It's expensive to travel to another city and go to a convention, especially if you don't have anything to promote. You know, if you've got if you're just going for fun, that's kind of hard to justify. So I'd love to go to that. I'd like to go to MegaCon at some point. I'm curious about DragonCon. Are there any other big ones that I would want? I always do go to New York Comic Con, but I do that because my best friend from college lives in New York and also likes comics. So it's an excuse to see him once a year. And that's just a thing we do for one day. It probably is too crazy, but I want to experience it at least once. Angoulême, I'd definitely love to go to. There's a good reason to go to the US, yeah. but I love travel in general. I will say that I do love travel. So any real excuse to go to another city, another country, if I can afford it, I will gladly do it. If I can afford it, that's always the sticking point. I am going to travel again, but not until January. That's pretty far away. It's something to live for, right? Right now, that's my reason to live. Is that I can make it. I can make it. We'll see. We'll see. Oh, I did something new on this channel. I don't know if everybody caught it. On Friday, I had a little bit of downtime, and so I decided to do an impromptu live stream. No announcement, and I just said, if you're brave enough that you're willing to come on the channel, I can ask you a couple questions about whatever comic book project or idea you have, and you can potentially, reach a bigger audience. Now, what's the risk there? There was no vetting. There was no preparation. So it was just like really flying by the seat of my pants to just sort of discover a little something about the stranger that I was talking to and find out like what they could tell me. And a couple people were a little upset that apparently I had sort of platformed at least one, maybe more Comicsgate folks. And to that I say, that's a fair concern. But it doesn't, like, the idea was more to talk about how an art form can be something that strangers can have in common, and it didn't talk about the politics of anything. Not that I'm trying to platform somebody that potentially has dangerous ideas so much as it's an impromptu live show. And yeah, if I do it again, it might be an utter disaster. It really could be. But that was a little exciting to just try to come up with hopefully interesting questions for the audience that I could ask a complete stranger. It was tricky and a challenge, and it was kind of fun, I think I'll probably try it again. Like maybe try it like once a month or something. And it is still like I'll be myself and I'll stand up for like I'll if there was somebody actually that was trying to get on, but in the chat they kept going like, skip them, they're bad, they're dumb, I hate this art, and so I didn't put that person on. In fact, I had to put them in a timeout. So I was trying to do what I could to manage that and keep people polite and focused on storytelling and art and ideas. I mean, I even talked to a couple guys that literally they were doing sort of like fan creations. They weren't even like, publishing them per se. They were just like fan ideas. And that's fine. I was like, okay, well, let's just see what their ideas are and what their approach to storytelling is. And maybe I'd even have a piece of advice that might help them move it forward. It was just an interesting idea. You get what you get. It's live. It's live. Anything could have happened, and kind of did. I kind of liked it. I had fun. I thought it was an interesting challenge. Thank goodness you didn't have a Danzig-loving dude on who likes EC comics and violence. I'm not so sure about that. I think I may just have. No, Circuitron was somebody that jumped in, and it was really fun talking to you. It really was. I liked it. We'll do it live. Another perfect impression. Anyway, I think I'll probably do it again at some point. Yeah. I had a good time. I hope that people got a little something out of it, that it was entertaining for what it was. And you know what? If it helps a couple people, like use it to just sort of like have a bit of a video to put on their social media saying like, hey, this is my big concept. Here it is, like as a like a snippet of a video, then maybe that's helpful. Maybe that helps somebody get to new viewers' eyes. That's a challenge. That's a challenge for everybody in comics. Is getting that audience. And I guess I feel like an obligation to use this whatever amount of platform I have here, which admittedly is modest in comparison to a lot of YouTube channels out there. I do feel a bit of an obligation to try to extend some of that audience to other people that want to make comics. You know, that's why I sometimes do interviews. That's why I do this show and talk about like news and stuff like that. I can't help everybody. I'd never be able to, but maybe I can help a little bit, like just sort of boost signals for the industry and make it like sort of share what makes the storytelling of comics so interesting to me. Hopefully that passion comes across. It interests me anyway. It interests me and it keeps me passionate about comics. Yeah, there is a PO box. I put that in like, there's a playlist here called like Indie Showcase where I'll either open comics that were sent into my PO box or right now this live show. So every once in a while I'll do that and sort of show what other people are working on. And I try to find an element of it that I like, no matter what sort of professional level it is, what genre it is, etc. I try to find something positive to talk about. Sometimes I'll have some advice. Maybe that's rude of me because who am I to give advice? But sometimes I do that, and hopefully it's meant to help people. But yeah, I guess we've been going a little over 2 hours, so I think that this is as good a time as any to wrap it up. I like doing interviews. I find it a very unique challenge, and I don't think I get it right every time. But I do like the challenge of it, where you're trying to address something new that hasn't been talked about a million times, as well as sort of find something new and unique about that person or their story. So I find that very interesting to do. You know, for instance, I've had a few interviews on here lately. I feel like I didn't do a very good job on my one with Jason Aaron. You know, that's a pretty big name to get to talk to, and I just don't feel that I did a great job on that one. But sometimes I think I get something interesting out of people, and I like that challenge. Just sharing something about me. When you're putting new comics in front of fresh eyes, you are doing God's work. I think it's an important thing to do, and I'll tell you, I don't think this is necessarily super realistic that I could hit this, but if I was the kind of channel that had, say, 1 million subscribers on Comic Tropes or something, one thing and it would need to be somewhere near there where like that could definitely be my main job, and I could afford to hire, say, like an editor or something so that I've got some more free time. But if I had like the capability of doing something like that, if I reach that level, I would absolutely create like a comic book grant. I've always admired, say, things like the Xeric grant and things like that that can help help somebody sort of self-publish their first comic. I would love to do something like that. I definitely don't have the funds to do that now. I mean, I'm realistically in debt, but I would love to do something like that. I think that would be a fun project to do and like help spread the word on comics. I don't know. I love comics. I think it's just such a versatile and fascinating medium that can cover so many different things. I find it endlessly fascinating. So it's what I like talking about. Anyway, thanks for all the positive feedback and listening to me. I'm going to call it a night on this channel. Let's see. Probably the next thing will just be like, next week's news show. And then sometime after that will probably be Jim and I's next trash movie bonanza. And in the meantime, we'll see. I'm going to try to get comic tropes out this weekend, but we'll just see. I'm going to try. Thanks, everybody. I don't think I've given you this yet, and you've definitely earned it. Everybody watching right now, the Devil's Salute. The highest honor I can give. Thanks, everybody. Keep reading comics. Bye.